Whenever we talk about education policy, it's so easy to get lost in all the jargon, right? We talk about structures, accountability, all that stuff. But we often miss the most important part of the entire equation, the people, the actual human beings who have to make the system work every single day. So today, let's dive into that, the human deficit.
This quote from our source material, wow. It just perfectly captures the state of Britain's education system right now. It paints this incredibly vivid picture, not of some robust, well-oiled machine, but of something that's just teetering on the edge, held together by nothing more than the sheer dedication of its staff.
And look, this isn't just a feeling. It's a full-blown, measurable crisis. The warning signs are flashing bright red all over the dashboard. Pay is down, workload is up, recruitment's collapsing, retention is evaporating, and the number of job vacancies is hitting record highs. So, how on earth did we get here?
Well, first, and this is probably the most fundamental piece of the puzzle, we have to talk about money. The pay crisis is really the foundation that so many of these other problems are built on.
The thing about this slide is just how brutally simple it is. This isn't some complex economic theory. It's a cold, hard fact. Once you factor in inflation, teachers today are actually earning less than they were over a decade ago.
And this chart really shows you the scale of that pay cut. We're not talking about a small dip here. For an experienced teacher, we're looking at a real terms pay cut of about 13%. Just try to imagine any other highly skilled graduate profession putting up with that.
So the key takeaway here is that none of this is a surprise. It's just basic economics, right? When you consistently underpay people for a really demanding job, your experienced folks start to leave, and fewer talented young people want to join in the first place. It's a completely predictable structural problem.
Okay, so you've got this massive pay cut, but what happens when you pile more work on top of that? Well, that's the second major hit, a huge inflation in workload. Teachers are being asked to do so much more for so much less money.
A huge part of this is the constant, never-ending demand for data. Teachers are just buried under all these requests for progress tracking and performance metrics, and all that time spent on spreadsheets is time not spent on actually teaching.
Then you've got the marking policies, which in many schools have become incredibly detailed and time-consuming. This pressure to provide deep, written feedback on literally every piece of work, well, it adds hours and hours to a teacher's week. On top of that, safeguarding responsibilities have just expanded massively. And while that's absolutely vital work, the sheer administrative burden of logging every concern, every conversation is just huge.
And finally, there are the endless curriculum changes. The real kicker here is that reform after reform has just added new tasks, new checklists, new pressures, but nothing ever gets taken away. It's just layer upon layer of work.
This quote just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The system has slowly but surely replaced professional trust and autonomy with bureaucratic box ticking, and that has a massive human cost.
And this pressure cooker environment, it's not just for teachers. It is absolutely crushing school leaders. More and more head teachers are saying their job isn't about educational leadership anymore, it's crisis management, just constantly juggling budget cuts, staff shortages, and the next big policy change.
But here's something we often miss. To really get the full picture of this crisis, we have to look beyond the teachers and the head teachers to the invisible infrastructure that holds every single school together, the support staff.
Think about it. These are the people who make a school actually function. The teaching assistants supporting our most vulnerable kids, the pastoral teams dealing with really complex well-being issues, the technicians who keep the science labs running. This whole ecosystem has been hollowed out too. And just look at this comparison. It's pretty shocking when you see it laid out so clearly. A teaching assistant, a role that takes incredible skill and patience, often working with children with special needs, is frequently paid about the same as someone working in a supermarket. Now, this isn't just about fairness. It's about whether we can even attract and keep people in these absolutely vital roles. And you know what the most frustrating part of all this is? None of it was a surprise. As this timeline shows, unions and school leader groups have been sounding the alarm for years and being incredibly specific about it. They warned about pay, about workload, about crumbling buildings, and underfunded special needs support. These weren't just complaints. They were system warnings, and they were ignored.
So, okay. We've laid out the problem, but why does this human deficit matter so much? Well, it matters because fixing it is the absolute prerequisite for achieving any other goal we have for education.
Think about the big ambition we always hear.
right? A world-class, even a private school-level education for every single child in the country. It's a great goal, but how on earth do you get there with a workforce that's on its knees?
So the crucial point the source makes is this. These things aren't just items on a policy wish list for someday in the future. They are the absolute, non-negotiable first steps. First, pay has to be restored. First, workload has to be stabilized. First, we have to rebuild the support staff and fix the burnout in leadership. Before we can dream of building anything new, we have to repair the foundations.
This really says it all, doesn't it? You can have the fanciest curriculum, the shiniest new buildings, the most brilliant ideas in the world. But if the people who have to actually deliver all of it are broken, then the whole system is destined to fail.
And all of this, everything we've talked about, leads us to one giant, unavoidable question. Restoring pay, hiring more staff, rebuilding that entire support system, what is the real price tag for fixing this human deficit and actually truly funding a world-class education for every child?